Hi all and welcome to the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name's Thomas Williams, living on the edge. We are living on the edge, but we all have a fun show anyway. There's lots going on, there's lots I can't say, and there's plenty I can, as per usual. And this is the first of 3 shows in 4 days for me. I have 2 shows coming up on Saturday, 3 into 1. That's at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturday with Randy and Alan. We'll be discussing various subjects from fresh air tokens to fake taxation and all kinds of other stuff, and hopefully provide some solutions along the way. And at 4 p.m. on Sunday, I think the show is called In the Matrix with Jimmy Brent. I will post the link on that as soon as I get it. And so that's a new show for us, and I'm looking forward to that also. For those who only listen every Thursday, the show with Richard was cancelled on Sunday. Richard had a bit of a nasty fall, but he is recovering well, and that could be arranged for later this month. And then of course we had Chloe doing part 2 on Tuesday, and so that's all on the website, and you can tune into that. What else have we got? The THI book is now finally out. Not as much fanfare as I would have liked due to certain things cropping up, but that should not be allowed to take away from all the people who had input on that assignment in various guises, be it writing the chapter, compiling links, the artwork, the design work and the layout work, all done by people who have never met each other, I don't think, and people from all over the world coming together and working on a project and delivering something that's just a little bit special, if I don't mind if I say so. So a special thanks to those, I hope I've got all the names, who contributed, the likes of Amy, Zenja, Marcel, Jen, Michelle, John, Truce, Dennis and Jess, with other notable inputs from GU Shift, BA, Marjolaine, Michael J and Perla also. You will all enjoy it immensely, and it provides further backup and insight to the work that I've put into the shows, and there's covers a lot, there's got links and everything, and all in all it's 306 pages packed with knowledge, links, depictions, artwork and much more, and I'm proud of all who participated in it, and it shows what can be achieved with a desire, belief and willingness to develop not only the self, and I'm sure all the individuals got much out of it and went way beyond their own expectations, but as a collective also. So I want to say thanks to you all. Now, certain issues have cropped up within the group and also outside the group this week, and in my opinion the two are related, as it's part of a coordinated attack on myself, Kim, and also the group. And this has been prevalent since last November. We know why, and we also expected it. And it's ramping up heavily. Why will probably be revealed later in the show. But the agents of non-change have ramped up their attacks and sending out their puppet minions to spy, deflect, distract and destroy. It's all they know. Witches and jinns in particular are in play a lot now. They can play, but we can end it, remember that. You know who you are, and I know your signatures. The light you claim you had was extinguished, and you dance with the dark. Their days are numbered, rapidly now, and subsequently so are yours. Final warning. Attack any one of our members again, and I will end it. Those of a higher soul development know not to attack, but only defend. And we will defend. Those who attack are subsequently dancing with and for the dark, and clearly not as developed as they thought. And a warning to the members also, it's not just me they target, but all members of the group. It's how they work. You will require a step up of the shielding and how to fend off attack techniques that's being given to you. If you are new, it's all available on the website thinkdifferent.thepeoplesclub.org. So why is this group attacked so often? Well, there are several reasons and several things, but I want to cover one in particular in this piece. And the gist is they hate the way this group has bonded as a family. It is the key aspect to it all. Outsiders cannot comprehend it. They just can't. It is the antithesis of life outside of our group in general. All arguing, all comparative and competitive mindset programming, bitter and twisted people, divide and conquer. And our group is breaking down their system. And boy, do they not like it. They want us all divided like them. That's not happening. You see, some comments here and there, and it becomes indicative. People stating of how much our group members defend me, and also vice versa. And so, because of that, it's labelled a cult in their abject ignorance. But the question is, what is wrong with defending what is right? Defending your family is the real question to answer. Is it not refreshing that a group of people globally all feel like they are in a family type setting where they feel comfortable, most of whom have never even met, where they're free to express themselves and defend their family group? To the people who question or label it, I ask, what is wrong with those traits or actions? And more importantly, what is wrong with you? And the reason being is they're part of a slavery suit system. Some claim that they're not, but their manners and actions tell us all different. And what they are displaying is abject envy and bitter jealousy traits. Why? Because they haven't developed themselves enough to join in. Period. It's the harsh truth. They can't handle the truth. They can't handle facing reality. They target us because we dared to be different. We shine like beacons. We think different. We care for each other. We defend each other. All human traits that has to be admired, not denigrated. But this is their mindset. Racked in envy of us all for being a change for the positive, regardless of what goes on globally or outside of our group. The system, clowns, minions and walking bots cannot handle what we have together. It rattles their dark, empty shells immensely. And it's time for all our members to ramp up our qualities and show the bitter ones what they could have been with some effort, application, a splattering of personal responsibility, loaded with the desire of wanting a better world. The rest are just active in keeping the old world with the support of the non-caring people. Let them be, for they know not what they do. And I'll repeat a saying I said a while back now: immigration in the future will be from their world into ours. let us continue to protect our world, as those outside of it are mired in the ignorance, death and destruction system. We're not. In THI, Off-Planet Radio and Circle of White Light we trust. If you dare to be different, if you wish to shine like beacons, think different, care for each other, defend each other, come and join us. If not, go back to the bitter and twisted gutter of what you call life. I will play a song now as it's indicative of these outsiders. But the words in the song: you didn't hurt us, you didn't cause us pain or make us cry. We are far too strong to allow low-level mindsets to do that. Hi all, and we're going to carry on with the show now with that little extra music break. There's something seriously wrong with people. Well, there's a lot of things seriously wrong with people. But the questions that were contained within that piece: what is wrong with caring? What is wrong for showing love to your fellow man, woman or child? You know, and defending it. The problem is them, racked in bitter jealousy. Like I said, it's their problem, it's not ours. And I'm pleased that we all defend each other, because we have we're under quite severe attack at the moment, both on a micro and a macro level, from various groups, including agencies, because they don't like what we've done. Well, they can go and suck an egg for all I care. Right. The presidential seal incident. Oh dear. Charles Lezot said he hadn't thought about the seal in months, and then the 46-year-old graphic designer threw it together after the 2016 presidential election, and it was one part joke, one part catharsis. And he used to be a proud Republican, he said, and voted for idiot Bush twice. But Donald Trump's GOP was no longer his party, he said, so he created a mock presidential seal to prove his point, and substituted the arrows in the eagle's claw for a set of golf clubs. I wonder why he didn't do that for the previous president, or George W. Bush. Both of them spent more days playing golf than they did being president of this country. But this is the mindset that's created via the programming of the media. And in the other, there was a set of talons, and he swapped the olive branch for a wad of cash and replaced the United States Latin motto with a Spanish insult. And then his coup de grace, a two-headed imperial bird lifted straight from the Russian coat of arms, and a homage to the president's checkered history with Russia. And if anyone thinks that that is some random event, you need to think again. That's as all the hallmarks of agency think tank programming. You know, as the Russian collusion winds down in the public, not with the cloth-head politicians, but the public, up pops this. Coincidence? Methinks not. And it's just another extension of round and round we go, anti-Russian, and Russian collusion, and everything about Russia is bad, etc., etc. 4-star US Navy Admiral, who is set to become the branch's top uniformed officer, is now deciding to retire after his judgment was questioned over a professional relationship he maintained with a former Navy public affairs official who left the service amid allegations of sexual harassment and also sexual assault. Now, Admiral William Moran was vetted for promotion after being nominated by Trump and confirmed by the Senate in May, but that plan abruptly changed on Sunday when he announced his retirement. Now, Moran's departure comes at a time when the Pentagon continued to operate without a Senate-confirmed Secretary of Defense. Why? Because there's no money left. And many other senior military roles currently remain unfulfilled or are filled by officials in acting roles. Nice word, that, acting. Perhaps they'll get AOC in, Agency Operated Clown, or Alexander Ocasio, whatever her name is, Cortez. Ocasio-Cortez, yeah. Agency Operated Clown sounds better to me, because that's exactly what it is. Where are we next? We've covered this particular group several times. In fact, they've been in the intel. It's now made the mainstream media. And law enforcement and school officials have defended 21 months of secrecy around the murder investigation of a Panorama High School at the hands of MS-13. Now, some of that secrecy was warranted, as they needed to find out, because they are on a total removal order, whatever means necessary. As those that particular gang are nasty beyond all reason. And one part of a grisly rampage that has generated national headlines and left at least 10 people dead. But a month before October 2017, off-campus slaying of Brian Andino, which was another incident linked to MS-13, erupted at the edge of the San Fernando Valley campus. And at least 2 MS-13 members, including 2 former Panorama students, are suspected of stabbing and wounding a student as he was leaving school. Now, law enforcement sources said that the MS-13 had established a significant beachhead at Panorama, and although Brian, 16, was killed off campus, it was 2 girls at the school who investigators say coaxed him to a meeting at Lake Balboa Park, where gang members, including other classmates, were waiting. Now, the LA Unified School District has denied the presence of a gang clique at the school, when it would, and said it left the question of whether parents and students should have been alerted to investigators. And details of the gang's connections have finally this week become public, and some parents and teachers have questioned why officials didn't alert the campus community earlier. No one said nothing. Now, there may be a national issue of being quiet on and dealing with MS-13, but it's certainly not at school level. And it suggests there's involvement with Pelosi and Feinstein. Only after a federal grand jury indicted 22 adults on racketeering and murder charges earlier this month did officials with the Los Angeles School District acknowledge that students from Panorama High had also been arrested, and prosecutors alleged that all of the accused are members of the MS-13 that killed 7 people, including Brian, over a span of 2 years. 3 more deaths are linked to MS-13 gangs are being handled in state court. Currently, officials said, 10 people they've killed. And some people still think we don't need a wall. These are the modern day versions of the Kali Ma and Solomon sacrificial cults. They're human sacrifices. They care not one iota for life whatsoever. These people. Well, people being maybe not the correct word, as per some of them anyway. As a minority of migrants that are not people. Dozens of armed miners have invaded a remote indigenous reserve in northern Brazil and stabbed to death at least one of its leaders, officials say. And residents of the village in Amapá state fled in fear, but a community leader said they could try to reclaim it, warning of the risks of violent clashes. Now, police have been sent to the area, and tensions in the Amazon region are on the rise, as far-right President Jair Bolsonaro has vowed to open some of the protected areas for mining. And he also says the indigenous territories are too big, given the number of people living there. But it's their territory. How can you apply that sort of logic? You know, Russia's a vast country and not many people live there. You can imagine if China just started mining in Russia. It boggles the mind. There's many states in the US that has mining capabilities and not many people living there. Should another country just come in and start digging holes in it? There's enough mining going on. We have plenty of materials. We don't need more. Now, critics accuse them of encouraging illegal mining and invasions of the reserves. And on Saturday, Mr. Wajapi, the leader of the Wajapi tribe, said that the miners had occupied the Mereri village, and he pleaded with the federal government to send in the army. And he said that the miners are armed with rifles and other weapons. That's something normal that an everyday miner carries, is it not? In other words, they were sent by higher-ups with guns. And he said that we're in danger, and he said in a voice message sent to Rodolfo Rodriguez, one of the state senators, there's a risk of more deaths and conflict, because I think the Wajapi will act soon. Now, Mr. Rodriguez, whose party opposes the Bolsonaro government, said 50 miners had invaded the reserve and the situation was very serious, and this would be the first violent invasion in 30 years since the demarcation of the indigenous reserves in Amapá. And he also warned a bloodbath could happen. Egypt's next. Minister of Immigration and Expatriate Affairs Nabila Makram has told an audience in Mississauga, Ontario, I think, yes it is Ontario, that anyone speaking against Egypt abroad will be punished. Oh my, Egypt going like Israel. Is that a coincidence? Maybe not. A video of Makram's comments last Sunday shows her making a slicing motion across her neck while making that particular remark. And a person out of the government making death threats. And Makram said in her talk, we only have one country, Egypt. Well, you might think that, but the rest of the world is kind of sick of Egypt and the Ra cult. And we cannot bear any negative word about it abroad. Some Egyptians in Canada are incensed by Makram's words, and so they should be, pointing to the current Egyptian regime's human rights abuses against political dissidents, many of whom now live abroad, says Mohammed Kamal, the founder of Egyptian-Canadian Coalition for Democracy, and an opposition group critical of Egypt's President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. And he said, we consider that a direct threat. We're assuming that our comments were aimed at all Egyptians around the world. And Human Rights Watch estimate that 60,000 people have been arrested in Egypt as political prisoners since el-Sisi came to power in 2013 through a coup. And we all know which other country was behind that. Capital One is dealing with what will likely be one of the most important breaches of the year, and the incident involved theft of more than 100 million customer records, 140,000 social security numbers and 80,000 linked bank details of Capital One customers, allegedly stolen by a single insider, according to court filings in Seattle this week. Now, the details set it apart from breaches of companies like Equifax and Marriott, which were attacked from the outside by criminals with a nation-state connection. And it's also different from the spate of ransomware attacks against major US cities, which were likely committed by groups of individuals outside of the US, according to the report. Instead, according to the indictment of Paige Thompson, she was able to exploit a loophole in Capital One Cloud Surfer's firewall to gain access to the information. Now, Thompson had several social media accounts listing experience as an engineer working for Amazon. Now, even if Thompson, it said in the report, was employed at Amazon, it may not have been a factor in the incident. Yeah, right. And Trump resumed his criticism. Where are we? That's a different story. Now, I'm going to cover that further down. That's why I thought I had more than that, but I'm going to cover that further down. President Trump resumed his criticism of prominent black congressmen from Baltimore this week, declaring on Tuesday that people in the city live in hell and it's corrupt. And Trump claimed that billions of dollars had been stolen in the city and called on the lawmaker, Democratic Representative Elijah Cummings, to investigate his hometown. Now, Cummings is chairman of the House Oversight and Reform Committee, which has been focused on investigating Trump and his administration. Last week, the committee authorised subpoenas for work-related emails and text messages sent from the personal accounts of Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump, which is the son-in-law and daughter, and both are senior advisors in the White House. It's a bit like a warehouse at times. Things come in and things go out. Predictably, in this case, which is a further ramp up of the programme they're running, the media is using the race card again to stifle investigation or the truth, and it's an all too common practice. But without full openness on all matters, this retort by Trump does resemble him on protecting his family only, particularly Ivanka and Jared Kushner. And regardless of who they are related to, all people within our government should be accountable. All of them. Particularly those two, due to Kushner's interactions with certain groups that have not necessarily been friends or friendly to the people of this country. And Trump took aim at the living conditions in Baltimore twice in 2 days this week. And yet, despite that, Jared Kushner has a large stake in some of the city's most troubled housing complexes. And Kushner currently holds ownership of several Baltimore area housing projects that have been embroiled in housing violations and mismanagement, that Kushner's been labelled a slum lord. Oops. Trump has to be careful. That boy Kushner will get him hung one day, as he's a liability, in my opinion. US Embassy officials in Cambodia can leave if they do not like it here, a Cambodian government spokesman said today, following criticism by US diplomats that the Southeast Asian nation's 2018 election was deeply flawed. Oh boy. What happened? Didn't Langley get involved in it and fix it? And Prime Minister Hun Sen's ruling Cambodia People's Party, CCP, won all 125 parliamentary seats in the election last year. That rights group says was neither free nor fair following the dissolution of the main opposition party. Now, in a post on Tuesday marking a year since the vote, the US Embassy in Phnom Penh said the election had failed to represent the will of the Cambodian people. But the government spokesman, Faye Saifan, said US officials should not make such barbaric comments. And although we are friends, if these officials don't like Cambodia, they should pack up and leave. Let me be clear, we don't welcome you. So that's all the news today. I'm going to go through a few Q&A and then we're going into sub-intel and intel. Was Shiva and the Kali Ma the only dark ones in the Mahabharata? I'm not too sure on that. I haven't read the whole of the Mahabharata, but there's a number of other entities that whose names escape me that are in play in that. You know, they took the Vedic texts and made it their own and put their own slant on it. It's a common theme. It's a bit like the original Illuminati was investigating what was going on in the Vatican, corruption. And they take that. It's a bit like the Freemasons group. They didn't start off bad, it just got twisted. Is it still safe to say mantras with Ganesh and Krishna for protection? I would say no. We don't really know the full knowledge of any mantra. You know, and these sigils and all the other stuff that goes with it. You know, do you really need to do that? I would advise no. You know, it's kind of, a lot of it's wrapped up in the New Age stuff, where people think they're doing good things with certain meditations and all this, that and the other. But people don't know what word magic has been seeded into it. They don't know the mantras. The Om mantra is not necessarily good either. And you only find out later the best thing to do is not do it. If you want to do a meditation, don't be doing mass meditation, just do your own. Yeah, it'll be fantastic if all the world was singing from the same hymn sheet, but clearly we're not. With the mixture of religious programming, you don't know what you're getting into. I recall hearing Krishna along with Radhamir and Buddha was light originally. There's some twisting in that. You know, the Tibet, that whole region has been corrupted. The Dalai Ma is a Langley agent. Oops. So if you're going to do mantras or sigils, draw your own and then set the intention to it. Meditate, create your own words and set the intention to it. There are also fire ceremonies that have symbolism of sacrifice. Again, that can be deemed in both ways. I'll have more on fire later. A piece on fire that may explain that. And yes, some of that stuff does contribute to loosh, a bit like praying. Could you speak to the unenslavement of souls trapped under contracts? Is there any movement in that area? I haven't requested any details of that recently. It's been worked on. Some have gone back, that I do know. How many? No idea. How many more to go? No idea. Eventually they'll return to the place where it's best for them. whether that's in a human vessel or back to source. The birth certificate crap, I hope, is largely broken. Well, they tried to fire that back up again. We blocked that. So that's not going ahead. Have the ultra-terrestrials, members of the Galactic Council, commented on any of our earthly music? No, we're far too busy with far too more important things than to discuss things of that trivial sort of nature. Maybe one day we can get round and discuss those type of things, but at the moment things are way too busy. There's way too much going on. About the New Age stuff, can Thomas speak about what to stay clear of? Well, I've just covered a few things. You know, there's obvious with the trinkets, the amulets and the stones and crystals and all that stuff, and all gone. You have to clear it before you use it. Do not just accept that something that comes in a box is going to start doing what you want it to do, because it's got latent energy connected to it. So that's some of the things that can help. You know, what can help with protection or healing, and what can help with protection or healing? Well, the best protection or healing is you. You know, I've done the protection piece that's on the website, and also touched on the healings in the show. It's what you believe you can do. Now, it is attached to having certain abilities, but you can have abilities and not use them if you don't believe in them. You know, and don't expect things to, you know, click of the finger and something magically happens. It takes practice. So I hope that helps some things, but it's important that everyone shield up and learn quickly how to fend off psychic attacks. In the show with the council, near the end, they said they were going to deal with the media. Anything new on that front? There is things going on, but that is operational. I know Five Eyes are closed. The other four eyes, are they also closed? Well, Five Eyes is Five Eyes. It's all Five Eyes. It's not 4, 3 and 2 and 1. Five Eyes is all closed. In fact, it was 9 eyes, but it's commonly known as Five Eyes. And deaf ears, what does that mean? That means they can't hear, can't plug in, can't listen. Is David Icke in it for the human race, or is he control faction? He seems to be there, but something's telling me he's not. Well, you've answered your own question. You doubt him. You don't need me to say yes or no. He's had ample opportunity to sue various groups who have labelled him anti-Semitic, and yet he hasn't bothered. These groups are making outrageous claims, saying he's a Holocaust denier. David, like I've been called a Holocaust denier, I've been called racist, I'm anti-black, I'm anti-everyone bar white recently. The best thing to do with those people is ignore them. Why engage stupidity? You know, and you're going into the very courts that these entities created and run. All you're doing is giving snake oil lawyers loads of money, and what will you get out of it? So just because he's not sued them doesn't mean to say that he's this, that or the other. You know, it can be rather costly in court, as you know, and taking on the court system that does everything to protect the lie that went on World War II and since. You know, you've got whole governments protecting them, never mind courts. pointless. How does one become a level 7 ascended master? You work hard on yourself. You master yourself in all aspects. It's not easy. It's a lot harder if you're always stuck in the mire, wanting external things, because you'll never attain anything from external. All you'll get is stuck in level 3 astral, being fed on. So it's an inner work. This is why we talk heavily about the shadow work and the inner work. Releasing your trauma, improving the self, being service to others. Not say you're service to others, but being service to others. Compassionate, caring, loving. Are all examples of conditions that people cost nothing to do, and yet it seems to be so hard in this world. And you master your emotions. We discussed that a few weeks ago about the left and right hemisphere. Why you're allowing your own brain to fight each side. You have to master that, which then leads to the cord to the third eye, and then you've got the triangle, which then, once you master that, then sets up the cord to go down to the heart. When you're in the heart center, your thinking, your emotions, your reactions, and the way you are is completely different to all but a very few on this planet, sadly. And it can be achieved in one lifetime. It doesn't necessarily have to take many, many lifetimes. It has here, because of the interference, they want everyone stuck in the astral level. It's not an advanced level by any means. It's childlike in essence, and also it blocks off the mental planes. Is when your junk DNA and your abilities that you have switches on. Once those abilities start switching on, everything changes, providing you have personal responsibility. Just because you can do this doesn't mean you have to wipe out this, that and the other, because you have magic. I call it abilities. I don't like the word magic. It's kind of twisted. But everyone has these abilities. Bilocate, healing of the self, healing of someone across the other side of the world. It's all a latent ability in us all. But it takes a lot of work and a lot of patience. I hope that helps. Let's see if it can fit a couple more in. What can be done to remove astral parasites? That's not an easy question to answer. You have to gain your abilities, and this is the problem. In the astral level, you've got little or no abilities. You've got to be able to see them first. And I'm not talking necessarily with your two eyes either. You see it in the third party, or through the third party, which is you. And that's how you can then recognize where they are and then take them out. But if you can't see, you're going to have great difficulty. This is why it's a big problem here, because there's very few who are able to deal with it. It's not everyone can see. Is Trump a Freemason? I have no idea. There's a lot of good Freemasons and there's a lot of not. I'm hoping a load of Freemasons walk away. because I don't think the majority of them that are in levels 1 through 4 or 5 have any idea that they're involved in an actual cult, and a sacrificial cult. So, you know, a lot of these presidents and get roped into these money people into going into these fraternities and brotherhoods because it puts them above the law in most cases, and also it gets them no big contracts or favours for loans and whatnot. That all goes on inside Freemasonry. That is not available to people who are not. It's a bit like being a Mormon. Same thing. As for his Jesuit education, again, that can swing both ways. It doesn't mean he's going to become a Jesuit psychopath or work for the Jesuit faction, does it? You know, it's like saying someone went and had a Catholic education. Are they all cults of Ra, worshipping cats? No. So there's not always an indicator, but I get where you're coming from. Trump has to move quickly, in my opinion. What is the connection between what we've believed as Satan, Lucifer, who we now understand as Marduk, and Anu? Not quite. Lucifer's kind of difficult. There's differing opinions. Satan is more of a label rather than one given person. And it's a bit like Moses and Enoch and all those. You know, but Satan is Set, as in that then became Satan, which then developed into Satan and Saturn. Set was the entity being that ran the planet Saturn, and it's their changing of vowels again, which is common right throughout From Russia with Love, of where they've gone with it. But Marduk played Baal, and he also played Ra. But he wasn't the only one that played Ra either. Anu no longer matters. Right, we're going to have a music break, and then we're going to come back with Subintel.
I
Hi all and welcome back. Right, we're going to get into some sub-intel. I started doing pieces last week of numbers of so-called famous people dying. And there's two more this week. Rutger Hauer, 75, died suddenly. And Gabe Cahuth, 46, died suddenly. And nothing was in the reports of how or why. Now, remember the intel about large mergers, and this is going to be the top order's new theme. Well, the Justice Department on Friday said it is approving T-Mobile's takeover. We'll have more on T-Mobile later. Oh no, it's in this piece. Oh well. Of T-Mobile taking over Sprint and clearing a major hurdle to a deal that would merge the nation's third and fourth largest wireless carriers. Harvesting time for businesses is what's really happening, and the companies have agreed to divest Sprint's prepaid businesses, including Boost Mobile, to Dish Network Corp in order to move ahead with the merger, which was announced last year and previously valued at $25 billion. But the deal still faces a significant challenge because a group of US state attorneys have filed a lawsuit in New York to block the merger, arguing that the proposed deal would cost consumers more than $4.5 billion annually. There is another piece about this later, but as a precursor, you do realise that neither of these are American-owned companies. Neither of them. T-Mobile is owned 63% by Deutsche Telekom AG, German, and Sprint is 84% owned by a Tokyo company called SoftBank. Next piece is indicative, and it's no surprise that he and Ms. von Reitz came out swinging again this week. They weren't the only ones. The Jesper Clowns were another lot of Kingdom of Manor. But Neil Keenan's latest, and he talks about Japan and South Korea again, and it's all very reminiscent of his post in 2013, that story to me. In fact, it is. Loop News. Same subject, same two countries, all about stealing gold out of South Korea. Now that's not happened, and didn't. And unfortunately, not all of us have short memories. But some of the quotes is useful for people to understand. We do have a lot of new members. And Neil, or whoever is representing Neil, said, quote, while smelling their own fear, defeat and moving as quickly as possible to alleviate their world financial losses, what better place to start their next outlandish thievery than South Korea with its hundreds of global accounts in bunkers, with the majority being owned by the Golden Dragon family. For those that don't know, those bunkers are empty. And the real Neil Keenan would have known that. And no, they don't or didn't belong to dragons, golden or other colours either. And it was stolen out of several countries and given to the Pindar Marcos and his band of minions, Sukarno, Sino, and also the Kennedys, who I believe Neil Keenan is actually related to. Go and check a picture of Teddy Kennedy. Given he travelled on their jet as a child. Keenan's words to me, not mine. And Keenan, the name Keenan is a derivative of Kennedy. That's why when they said they've been waiting for him for decades. And if people think the Kennedys are good, wrong again. All that fun and games which looked great to us, he was going after the CIA and going after the Federal Reserve. He was going after the Bush group because the two families hated each other. It's almost like the faction wars now, where one faction tells all juicy tidbits on this faction, that faction and that faction, but leaves out their own. A bit like the Able Danger group and some others. That's how it works. And the only reason Indonesia is a focus of attention at all is because Marcos was the Pindar from there for several decades. In our time, he was the most prominent Pindar. And even after his fake public announced death, he carried on Pindar for another 15 years, I think, ballpark. Because he never died publicly. And Marcos harvested everything and was like the central bank for Marduk, being the Pindar. And then Neil's blog says, today we know them as global collateral accounts. The West did not use anything other than the stolen assets or loot from the war itself. That comment alone says much. The West used the stolen assets. This is globalist speak for a few reasons. One, the loot in those bunkers Neil refuses to identify the real countries it was stolen from, of which 88% of it was from Rusland. Not China or the East. Russia. And two, it's a classic divide and conquer program of blaming the West and shift everything to the East. Three, the globalists were transferring all power, money and wealth from the West to the East under the Federal Reserve Agreement of around 1910, with the new Fed building was going in Macau, Singapore. That's not happening. And four, fails to mention that a lot of that gold was stolen by the very people he works for. 5. Let us not forget the comment Neil Keenan said to me in a call in Christmas 2014. Quote, Thomas, Americans are fat lazy bastards who need to get back to work and not live middle-class lifestyles off the back of the wealth of the East. All of it belongs to the East. Unquote. No, it doesn't. It never has done. And the RNA proves it. Now, it's 5 years ago now that Keenan allegedly went into the vaults and allegedly pulled out some small boxes. Some say it was gold, some say it was copper in the boxes. But one has to ask how and why the M1, as he calls him, which is the monetary master, and his latest position of leader of the Muslims on behalf of Allah, the Amanah, as to why he hasn't been in one bunker since. And if he has, where are the collateral accounts? The point being is that the original Neil Keenan from several sources was deleted in some way around September of 2016. I can't find a single valid source to state he's still alive. And that came shortly after a visit by Robert David Steele. Is Mr. Steele the handler? Same company. And the new one, the new Keenan, to me looks suspiciously like Michael Young and dragon partner of Anna von Reitz. He was the person that asked for a third of, with her support, a third of America's in-ground resources. I'm going to get to von Reitz in a minute. Now, largely it's irrelevant whether he is the original Neil Keenan or not. What is relevant is why, as the M1 holder of all the collateral accounts, has been and still is begging for money from the public, selling massively overpriced healing machines. Why is the Amanah, which is a disciple of Allah, not able to deliver anything but loop stories on his blog and show pictures of something that resembles to me like a giant golden dildo? And a bag covering up the lower portion of it. What's the bag hiding? Now, I've said all along, if Neil delivers the collateral accounts to the people, I'll be as happy as anyone on this planet. But this drivel he or his scriptwriters put out is helping no one. Like Jesper and their teams and generals, all of them are being led a merry dance of which they should have long past worked out by now. They're playing games with them. Are these collateral accounts? Just goes on and on. I got this from one of the members, and it's important because it's not the only story I've heard about post offices this week. I didn't have time to pull up the other one to tie it together, but this is indicative of the larger picture. Don't ignore it. In South Africa, anyone who is getting a pension or child grant now has to draw their money at the post office. If it goes into a bank account, the card is swallowed and they have to reapply, and when it's paid out at the post office, money is missing in the grant or pension amount. Why? It's the running out. Not just that country. And there's been hundreds of people lining up at post offices to get their money, which is paid short. And the question was, do you think, and is it possible, or Rothschilds are now looting the pension and children's grant money in different countries? They've looted everything. There's nothing left. The problem with South Africa is you need to go and ask. Of course, it's linked with the Bank of England as well. Is the Reserve Bank of South Africa and the Bank of England, if you want it to stop and there's money for the people, is tell them to stop making donations to the Chinese. That's where all the money's going, because they've got none left over there. Next item, short, to the point. People may well witness changes in the moon. Next piece, Anna von Reitz raised her head again. No coincidence, given the work done recently, so thank you for the confirm. And particularly the latest envious of Kim piece that she comes up with now and again when certain hammers fall behind the scenes. They send the Langley 2 puppet, and she didn't disappoint again, if it is her. And apparently now her and her agency partners have decided to blame Kim for blocking the RV. The RV that was never existed to begin with. And Kim's also blocking the Vatican trust funds, causing global warming, and also Kim caused the last ice age as well, it seems, according to Anna von Reitz. The same woman who asks questions never answers any real questions posed to her. None. She just rattles off verbiage that contradicts herself and makes no sense whatsoever, as you will see. So in the email she sent, quote, I never asked her, Kim, to send a penny to the Vatican. Why in the hell would I, when all the money she says she controls is coming from the Vatican and its network banks? Wrong. All the money does not come from the Vatican banks or their network. She then states this: I want an account set up. This is what she asked him. In the Vatican Bank for the office of the fiduciary, so that we, the United States of America, can conduct necessary business related to our assets, which are mainly offshore in banks controlled by the Vatican. And that requires us to open up an account at the Vatican Bank and open up the dialogue about these legacy accounts. Contradictory in any way? I never asked her to send a penny to the Vatican, and then she tells you she wanted an account set up in the Vatican Bank. Her words, not mine. So according to her, now she's the bad guy for demanding that accounts should be audited independently by owners, and asking Kim to set up an account for my office of the fiduciary at the Vatican Bank, so that we can pay our auditors and support them while in Rome. For one, she never states who these owners are, a repeated question that she fails to answer. All too convenient. Why doesn't she go and ask the bloodline families she represents for the alleged funding to Rome? Why is it coming out of the trust? And number two, we are not the United States. We are America. And with her legal background, she should know that. She then went on to say, that's not giving the Vatican a ton of money. That's access of money already in the Vatican Bank that the American people are owed to do a duty required by any fiduciary. Really? And all very reminiscent of her sidekick, Neil Keenan. So it's the same programme, who despite being the M1 monetary controller, needed $20,000 from his members to gain access to the bunkers. So now, Anna was not asking for $20,000. Anna was asking Kim for $10 billion. Anyone see the similarity? So she said, so having stated that she never asked Kim to send money to the Vatican, then requests $10 billion to go into the Vatican Bank. Why not any other bank? Why the Vatican? Because Anna was the personal legal secretary to the popes. That's why. Particularly the Nazi Ratzinger. And she said, I asked her to put $10 billion in an interest-bearing account so that the interest would support asset recovery teams in Rome, the Philippines, no surprise there, and other locations where we need to send auditors, lawyers, and bank examiners. Fine. Question 1. Why would it take $10 billion to audit anything? Question 2. Who appointed the auditors that she was going to send, lawyers and bank examiners? Auditors like Deloitte, Cabal, lawyers who lie all day, every day, so why should we trust them? And bank examiners. Oh my, that's a bit like the police investigating the police, is it not? So where is the public oversight for spending $10 billion on that? It defies belief. She still won't mention about the deal with Michael Young, aka potential new Neil Keenan, of the 1/3 of America's in-ground resources going to the Chinese. But questions back to the multi-elite bloodline family named one, with family who thinks she's the Queen of England. We know you work for the families. We're not stupid. It's all in your name. The question remains, what have they ever done for humanity? What did they do with the trust funds when they had access? Tell you what they did. They all lined their own pockets with our money. And now they don't have access. They think we are stupid enough to give them the same harvest and family people access back in. Really? I think you spent too much time with Emily in the Yahweh channel, if you ask me, Anna. So now Kim is apparently spreading false information about Anna. Wrong again, Anna. I'm putting out the information, not Kim, and it's not false. She goes on, after what has gone on here, we're just supposed to take whatever we are given and not conduct our own audit. Why not? Why can't you conduct your own audit? Kim has funded her own efforts to eliminate the harvesting clowns and work on the trust. What makes you so different? And how the hell does it cost 10 billion to audit anything? Kim has stood in the way of us doing that, just as she stood in the way of accessing the other two trusts, which don't belong to them, that could be providing relief to this country's poorest people right now today. Oh, spare me that drivel. And you expect the people to believe that? Who did you blame for non-actions before Kim became a more public figure in 2016, Anna? Who was stopping you and all the bloodline families in the preceding years, going back to 2007, when your master cut off all the bloodline families? What was stopping you then? The gist of all this is the families of which she is part of did not give a single thought to humanity whilst they were being given funds to build their mini empires around the world. Habsburgs, which is the predominant family of von Reitz. They stole all kinds, going back to the 1200s. And what happened is Marduk cut them all off, and they all cried wolf and wanted their funds and trusts back, except those funds and trusts never belonged to them to begin with. This is what these people don't get. All that in the trust is the people's money, not bloodline families. And what they're asking is almost like the equivalent of Dick Turpin robbing a stagecoach, carrying on through the forest, getting beaten up, his loot stolen, and then complaining to the authorities he's been robbed. It's beyond stupidity. $10 billion to go through some books. Let's put that into perspective, shall we? $10 billion is higher than the GDP of 72 countries around the world. Ponder on that for a second. Then add in all the banks around the world, and she chose the Vatican. Oh my. The same Vatican bank that was partially closed down 4 to 5 years ago for corruption. All she was doing is facilitating money laundering, because that would have gone right out the back door and right over to the Chinese counterparts. So, give me a break with your desperate drivel, Anna. It's got more holes in it than a Swiss cheese. The world's just not as stupid as you all thought anymore, and it's cottoning on to your elitist family games. And as for your abilities as a legal expert, was it not you that lost in court both cases on your non-paying of taxes and also your home? So don't be spouting about your legal standing. Now, personally, I have sympathy on both of those cases with you, but don't be spouting legalese, because it doesn't work too well, despite being a Vatican insider. They're your words. You're the one that says you were the personal secretary to the Pope, not mine. And when she and all the other clowns realise your enemy is not Kim. The enemy is you and who you work for. Then we might see a better version of Anna, stacked with knowledge like she has, and ideas, I might add, to go forward for the people, not houses or bloodline families. They've all failed. It's all gone. You got duped. You duped the people and M duped you. Get over it. And what Kim wants to do is to share it right round the world, because all that life force energy, which is what the piece of papers represents, came from everyone on this planet. Very rarely see these bloodline families digging in mines or any of that shit. No, you'll sit there, landowners and slaves. Now into the intel. Expect all forms of communications to be disrupted, including banking and cable. From Q recently, possible China monitored Mueller hearing, China analysing 2020 election, China taking steps to interfere with 2020 election, China involved with communication with Democrats and some other Chinese-related issues like trade deals. I brought this up because I want to make it clear. This has nothing to do with China the country, and nothing to do with President Xi or the Chinese government, and everything to do with the globalists and the dragon-related groups backed by the Rothschilds. It's important to make that clear, and it would actually be helpful if Q makes that clear before we launch into another pointless investigation of Chinese collusion, providing Q is aware of it. If not, it's steering people down a very wrong path again, and we don't need it. Next item. Clowns found out on Wednesday, took them a bit of time. There are no more black screens for them to access anymore. Oops. All gone. All removed over the weekend. And that's why you had certain people on the internet digging at Kim and the team. Also removed was their backdoors into mobile phones, banks, the deep web, the dark web, two separate items, and other backdoor services is now gone. So most people will not be familiar with the term deep web and think it's the dark web. No, it's not. It's another layer. What people wouldn't know is, did you know that the deep web was accessible via online banking websites? You do now. Next item. Jesper Ellerman of the now defunct Organisation of the Kingdom of Mana. Their sovereignty and all banking codes were stripped back in December of 2017, is now officially the go-to guy to deliver the RV. And he's going to fail 3 times a week until infinity. But Jesper's been telling everyone he has the codes to the system and it will all happen. Too funny to Jesper. You know, these people are like Keenan, Rothschild's hand puppets. When are they going to wake up? You know, I'd be worried if I was Jesper and all his crew. as the Roths are doing fire sales for a reason, because they are sieving funds too quickly and there's nothing left. If you have nothing left, and even if they had the will or desire to do an RV, how is that going to be accomplished? It's just not. That's why the IMF told 134 countries we're going to crypto. Why? Because they've got nothing left. No control of it and no volume of it. And quite soon, Jesper and his Australian, New Zealand, Shanghai, Fiji and African counterparts will not be getting paid. Don't believe me? Fine. Banks are in grave trouble. Please act accordingly. There is sufficient evidence in the mainstream media, never now mind what we know. Kim was contacted by an intermediary this week to discuss a potential contract agreement of releasing some funds, of which this particular group said they would do, but they wanted to control it. Common theme. And the negotiations would be on their terms. And all of this was discussed without Kim's knowledge, I might add, but later she was informed of the potential deal. Now, following that private discussion, the person offering the deal to the intermediary then went to London to talk with his bosses to facilitate the process of that particular deal. And then we found out, Kim did, who the London bosses were. They are called the World Government Council. That'll be a completely new name to you. And they have ran Rusland, Russia, for many, many years. They were a part of looting it up until 2016, when the peace treaty was implemented. Now, the peace treaty negated and closed all non-human entity trade deals and control, except this group, it seems. And the World Government Council ran out of London, UK, are all reptiles. These are the dark magician beings with the black robes and the red sashes. There is another variant of black robes and blue sashes. And they are the same group that operates under the Vatican. Message to them: we know who and where you are, and we will act again on all of you this time, not just the 2 of your group who were taken out last year. And a message: some people sing like a canary, some take the canary out. So they promised to release 100 million for projects, but on their terms. And they failed to state what their terms are, which is indicative. Kim has seen this many, many times before. And these type of groups operate on the premise they facilitate something and then demand in the deal favours in return. And the favours can involve anything. Go and shoot your mother, whatever. And is punished by death should you not fulfil their favour or wishes. It's how these people operate. Or entities. Message to the generals globally: do not engage these beings. They are dangerous and psychopathic, and they have nothing to offer us. Zip. And we will not be negotiating with reptiles on their terms under any circumstances whatsoever. We are not interested in what they offer. We are not required to engage them in any way, shape or form. Their power and control over humanity ended in August of 2016, and reptiles are no longer playing the lead role here. They can go and lay an egg or suck it for all we care. But let it be known here on record, we will not be kowtowing to any reptile ever again on this planet. Any future deals with those groups will be on our terms, not their terms, and will not be done via intermediaries, governments, generals, contractors, or any other agenda-driven groups either, just to be clear. You all know who to contact, and we will be clear in our intentions. Deals will be what is best for the species designated as rulers of this planet, humans. Your days of looting, harvesting, consuming and killing us are over. Message to the Dorsey. You're on an extinction order for your acts this week. You will pay for that. Final piece. The Draco Queen again appealed to the clowns who are following M's old program to stop their games. They refused, and so they have pulled all support of that group away from them. This is a big, big move. So the Draco will no longer be assisting them in their games any further. And like I said, this is a massive move and is welcomed. This will leave the clowns and other beings intent on playing essentially swinging in the dark under their own steam, as their isolation here now will increase, and their control now over anything diminishes rapidly. We'll be back shortly. Hi all and welcome back. We're going to go into some op-ed pieces, and the first one tonight is the general fertility rate. Of course, I warned of this in one of the From Russia with Love pieces, and the fertility rate in America has continued to decline last year, and this is according to a new report from the US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's National Center for Health Statistics. Now, the 2018 general fertility rate fell to another all-time low for America. And the report, which was published on Wednesday, said that the general fertility rate dropped 2% between 2017 and 2018 amongst girls and women aged 15 to 44 nationwide. Now, in 2017, the total fertility rate for the United States continued to dip below what's needed for the population to replace itself. That was in 2017, and another 2% rate drop last year. This was according to a separate report published by the National Center for Health Statistics. But what this is now proving, this was a deliberately engineered program done by social engineering projects based on them continuing their game. Now it's failed. They start a second program of bomb people out of their homes and countries and then push them into Western countries. That's their latest program. It's deliberate. And then from those migrants' perspectives, they're not going to be pleased to go into countries who took part in bombing them out of their homes in the first place. And then you have the media fear programs of all Muslims are jihadists and Hispanics are drug runners and gun runners, etc., etc. And whilst they're doing these migrants, they're pushing through non-humans in with the migrants and gangsters like MS-13 and also the FARC guerrillas. Not to mention the Langley-based clowns, Al-Qaeda and Taliban and all the others. And then you have a powder keg situation. And it's the classic Ouroboros programs that the clowns are running now, where one program ends up swallowing the other. Depopulation. Now they're losing their finances. So now they have to push people into their countries to keep them going. Not us going, them. Now, when it's examined by race, the data showed that fertility rates declined 2% for white and black women, and 3%, which is a surprise, for Hispanic women between 2007 and 2018. And the data also showed that the teen birth rate, ages 15 to 19, fell 7% from 17 to 18, which is largely a good thing, I think. You know, there's far too many young girls starting off their transition from a child to an adult with children in tow, and it largely has a damning effect. So the fact that that fell 7% between ages 15 and 19 is a good thing. Now, when it's examined by race, the data showed that teen births declined by 4% for black teenagers and 8% for white and Hispanic teens. And among all births, the percentage delivered at less than full term, or 39 weeks, increased, with preterm births climbing roughly 10% in 2017, and also another steady increase of just over 10% in 2018. Early term births rose from 26% in 2017 to 26.5% in 2018. And yet I've yet to see someone addressing what are the causes of the increase in premature births. Well, we all know why by now, because of the interference with injections and all kinds of other chemicals they're putting in. But you're talking a third of births not going full term. And the percentage of births delivered at full, late or post-term also declined according to the data. Full-term births were down from 57.49 in 17 to 57.24 in 18. And the post-term births declined from 6.58% to 6.2%. Now, the latter is likely due to mothers having children now well into their 30s and 40s, due to the rise of career-oriented women and also a lack of finances. But is it not the case it's a sick world where the crown of creation, the birth of a child, is now so heavily based purely on finances? Do people not think there's a basic fundamental problem with that thinking or actions? No, people criticise the Muslims, but some of their presidents and prime ministers were funding children. Gaddafi being one, Hussein another. $50,000 per child, memory serves me correctly. Why can't the greatest, richest country in the world do that? It's just wrong. This week also, not only do we have a plethora of clowns interfering in the group and playing games, but Facebook decided to chime in and heavily censor the group this week with the brain dead fact checkers, and it pulled up a post of little to no relevance whatsoever. You know, who's paying these people is beyond me. And it was about a bridge in Holland that goes over a highway for the benefit of animals. And they pulled it because the picture, they said, was of a bridge in Singapore. So they declared the whole article fake. But when you look in their description, like the one I pulled up a few weeks ago, contradictory again. Their description and reasoning, however, reveals that there are some bridges exactly the same as that in Holland, after all. Just whoever did the article posted a picture of a bridge in Singapore. And this is what these clowns are pulling up. You know, people are being paid to do this shit. You know, how about they go and do some real research highlighting the real fakery? Like the owner of Facebook for a start. Or pick any news media site. Christ, you get overtime galore investigating their fakery. Or pick any government and do some real work. You know, does it really matter whether the animal bridge is in Singapore or Holland, for source sakes? It's beyond madness. Capital One. I need to, these two pieces kind of tie in together, if memory serves me correctly. Yeah. But a few things came up with regards to the latest breach of personal security, this time Capital One, following several other high-profile breaches. With all these breaches, the question remains is how safe would be the cryptocurrencies many are now pushing, like zero. And expect another breach or major story of some incident involving cryptos soon, with the headlines X millions not accessible or stolen. You watch. But the mention in this article is about the woman who was linked to it, worked for Amazon. And the fact that the article tried to play it down is often indicative of their actual involvement. It's the way the media works. And Amazon are part of the latest globalist takeover of everything, and why I've warned in the sub-intel of giant mergers taking place, and that they're harvesting everything up again as a backup plan to other plans failing. But one has to ask the question and ponder on is, are all these major data breaches coming from one platform, collecting all the data for the new platform? Think about that. These are not ordinary hackers. This is high-level hackers, which means CIA, NSA, Mossad, and Silicon Valley goons. And perhaps this next piece will answer that question. People may remember the piece I did in the Clowns in Panic show about Amazon becoming the world hub, it was stated, along with Robert David Steele's open source technology. Perhaps need to listen to this. Aides to Donald Trump this week presented him with a document identical to one created by a top Washington lobbyist for cloud computing giant Oracle, Kenneth Gluck, implying that the competitor Amazon is only a favoured contender for a major contract with the US military due to a far-ranging conspiracy orchestrated by Jeff Bezos. And in the one-page document is a result of squabbling over the Joint Enterprise Defence Infrastructure project called JEDI, and a $10 billion. I wonder if Anna von Reitz wanted the $10 billion for them. A $10 billion 10-year Pentagon cloud computing initiative, which has yet to be finalised. And in it, it suggests that Amazon is one of only two finalists in the bidding process alongside Microsoft. That's not happening with them, due to corruption and a network of cronies within the Defence Department. And it said it's unclear how it made its way into the White House, though Oracle reportedly has made efforts to maintain close connections with Trump officials. Now, the document contains a flowchart titled, quote, a conspiracy to create a 10-year DoD, Department of Defence, cloud monopoly, unquote, and provides a visual representation of a narrative that Oracle has been pushing for months. Oracle is Microsoft. those who don't know, and ran all the banking, not no more, that a web of individuals inside and outside the Defence Department were greasing the wheels for Amazon to win a cloud computing contract known as Jedi. Now, Oracle's own bid did not make it to the final stage. Why did Oracle not make it? Because it was closed down. That's why, as it was being used to infiltrate banks and all government and agency departments is why. That was part of the clean-up of the system. Predictably, Amazon declined to comment on the story, but the said chart shows a web of professionals and personal connections between current and former staff of both the Pentagon and also Amazon, with the version seen by Trump featuring former Secretaries of Defense Ash Carter, featured alongside President Obama, because it's one of his people, and Jim Mattis. Now, it does not make any direct allegations of wrongdoing. Instead, it's relying on unsubtle innuendo and implications to make its point, and Gluck hangs the documents in the window of Oracle's DC office, according to the reports, but denies any involvement in getting it to Trump. The question is, who did? Now, Oracle has aggressively contested what it sees as unfair pro-Amazon bias in the Jedi contract and processing court, as well as claimed that Amazon cleared the way for its front-runner status in part by offering the Defense Department official a job while he was involved in evaluating the Jedi vendors. All too common now, isn't it? It's a bit like that court case we were talking about, was it last week or the week before, involving Epstein. The judge was offered a job when Alistair was on the case. Same thing, just repeats. And additionally, Oracle has sought to cast a meeting between the then Secretary of Defense Mattis and Bezos in 2017, and former work for Amazon Web Services by one of his advisors, Sally Donnell, in suspicious light. All this is their desperation to replace old systems with new systems which are not new, with the same people in control. And the panic now is palpable. Make no mistake about it. It's palpable. And Trump needs to shut Amazon down, break it up, and sell it off to the public, because they have reached that position because of clowns inside the Department of Defense, clowns inside of other state departments, all giving them, like Halliburton and Bechtel and all the other goons in the military, no-bid contracts. All gets divvied up by the agencies and people. That has to stop. The ongoing thing of crypto raised its heads again, and perhaps this might shake a few more out. You know, several people have said to me I'm wrong on cryptos. Fine, we'll see. And they all state it's getting around the system. I for one am more than happy to be proven wrong if it helps us all. You know, I've gone on record, I said earlier, if Keenan delivers the collateral accounts as promised, I'm more than happy to hold my hand up and accept I'm wrong. But perhaps this piece, this week, will make some people reconsider their crypto stances. As always, time tells. So, this week, if you own Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies, you might want to check your mailbox. Why? Because the IRS is in the process of sending letters to US citizens who own virtual currency and potentially fail to pay the necessary taxes, and to those who improperly reported taxes on digital assets last year, which was announced by the agency on Friday. Oops, that's really getting around the system, isn't it? And what they're saying is taxpayers should take these letters very seriously by reviewing their tax filings and, when appropriate, amend past returns and pay back taxes, interest and penalties also. And the IRS Commissioner, Chuck Rettig, said in a news release that the IRS is expanding our efforts involving virtual currency, including increased use of data analytics. Oops. That's where they keep all your data, so none of you can hide. Again, that's not getting around the system. And the agency said it started sending out letters last week, and that by the end of August will reach at least 10,000 taxpayers. And the list of names was obtained through various ongoing IRS compliance efforts. In other words, they're going around all the companies and asking them for their database. Again, that's not getting around the system, is it? And in some cases, the IRS said taxpayers could be subject to criminal prosecution. Last year, the popular trading platform Coinbase had to alert 13,000 of its customers that it was going to comply with a court order to provide the IRS with information on accounts worth at least $20,000 from the years 2013 through 2015. Oops. Now, the IRS didn't say whether its mailing list was a result of the Coinbase disclosures, but based on guidance issued in 2014, the IRS treats all virtual currencies, including Bitcoin, Ethereum and XRP, as property under US tax law. Again, that's not getting around the system, is it? That means that, like real estate, the sale or exchange of tokens, fresh air, for other goods is a taxable event. Now, most trades count as short-term capital gains, which can be taxed as high as 39%, depending on your income bracket. And those who hold Bitcoin for more than a year and then sell it, however, are only liable for long-term capital gains tax, which is levied at a lower rate of 15 to 23.8%. You know, these people get roped in for these clowns off the alt media. These currencies, gets around the system. You don't pay taxes, this, that, and the other, and the next one they get slapped with all kinds of tax bills. You know, it's like these legalese people on the internet. Go and file this, and Von Reitz has done it many times. File this paper in court, file that paper in court. Well, she filed for non-payment of tax and lost. She filed over mortgage, home mortgage, and lost. That's what happens to the average person when it goes in court, even someone with all the knowledge likes of Anna von Reitz. They just crush it. And we have to get far more savvy. This has gone on nearly a whole decade of people creaming money for crypto, going by Zims, Dings and Dongs and Dungs and all kinds of other bullshit, and these fresh air tokens, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. We have to get a bit more savvy, because a lot of these clowns on the internet are setting us up and robbing us blind. The final piece, where we have a short music break, and it will be music only, because it ties into this piece. The series called Dark on Netflix. I want some people, or all people, to go and watch. I just started watching season 2, when I wrote this. I've actually finished it now. I think there's only 8 episodes per season. And it is German, but it's well subtitled in English, well dubbed, in other words. It doesn't look or sound stupid. And it covers various parts of our previous shows going back quite a few years now. And it will get you pondering on time, portals, are we all connected, is everything connected, there are no accidents, players in different roles, lifetime after lifetime, consequences of actions, the number 33, what is time, is it an illusion, all in the one show. Check it out. I feel that show is almost full-on disclosure program, and it feels, well, those chunks of it that come right out of our show, and it resembles many of the detailed op-ed pieces that we have covered, but it certainly looks like disclosure in many aspects. Take note of the dates as you watch it. It's all about time, and so is this music piece. Hi all and welcome back. That was Time, Hans Zimmerman. Where are we going next? We've got some real interesting pieces coming up. That's going to have your brain thinking a lot, which is good. 2 minor items that people need to take note of. I want to look at 2 drinks that are highly addictive, and one that's been confirmed contained the drug cocaine, and the drink was called Coke for a reason. You know, that's fairly obvious, as it did contain or does contain elements of the drug within it. It was seeding program, get people used to the drug, get people liking it, and then get people on addicts, and then you go and buy their medicine to fix it. Now, Coke is what we are familiar with name-wise now, or Coca-Cola. But did you know the original name was called Dope, not Coke? And it was invented by a morphine addict chemist who tested various toxic plants before using the final version, which not only gets you high in mild form, but it's also proven to rot things as well, like rust. But it will come as no surprise that Dr. Pemberton died aged 57 of stomach cancer. The irony is not lost there. Now, the French complained about it in the mid-1900s and described it as US coca colonization. Perhaps colon is the operative word there. And said the agents selling it were from the OSS and the then now taken over US State Department. Oops. Who'd have thought soda would be ran by OSS and the State Department? And then we come to Mountain Dew, another very highly addictive drink. I know personally, as I watched my youngest son drink 6 or more cans per day. And I've seen a number of people going through like whole cartons of Mountain Dew. One of the American people I work for, he had cases of them, couldn't stop drinking them. And then I came to find out Mountain Dew was the name of a product and could potentially be the cause of addictive drinking, as Mountain Dew in 1839 was described as, quote, raw and inferior whiskey, unquote. Whiskey being a spirit. Oops. The mountain and the spirits combine. We'll have a piece on mountain and spirits later. So I mentioned about the mergers of the mobile phone companies, and so I thought I would do some investigating. Who owns them? The media merry-go-round. We're trying to find detailed information on who owns mobile phone companies is the equivalent of trying to plait custard. All too familiar to us, as we know, as these groups hide behind shell corporations so the public doesn't find out who is who or what is what. Now, Verizon is 45% British owned, and then it comes under Bell, which is supposed to have not operated for many decades, and yet Verizon and AT&T both have Bell as their partners. This is the original Bell company I'm talking about. Now, the reason being for this is that Bell, AT&T, comes under military contractors rule under the 1934 Telecommunications Act. I know, I've read it, all of it. And in fact, the US military owns and controls all airwaves frequencies, now including cable. In fact, all forms of communications runs through the US military under the 1934 Telecommunications Act. All of it. Now, Spectrum is the latest one, of course, is the latest big player, having bought out Time Warner Cable and also Bright House under Charter Communications. The same Charter group who went and filed bankruptcy back in 2009 and yet still remain a big player in the game. Now, in 2018, SoftBank, who owns most of Sprint, I think I said 84%, now owns 5% of Charter as well. SoftBank is Japan. Now, the question remains with 5G rolling out is not necessarily the dangers of frequencies that are of major concern, but the fact that our main suppliers in these fields are all non-American. Why aren't people asking, is that not a question of national security? And why is the US military still controlling all of our frequencies and bandwidths? Perhaps the 5G we're all going to die people are better looking into that. Next piece. The mountain and the spirits. I want people to look at the correlation between the word larva, L-A-R-V-A, and lava, which is also said as lava, L-A-V-A, and what can we deduce from it. Lava with the R in the 1650s was a ghost, spectre, disembodied spirit, and earlier as larve with an E on the end, circa 1600, from the Latin larva with the R, and earlier, larua, L-A-R-U-A, ghost, evil spirit, demon. Also mask, from the Roman mythology of unknown origin, it's stated. So that's larva, L-A-R-V-A, and then you've got larva, L-A-V-A. I'll say it as lava from now on, so not confused. Molten rock issuing from a volcano, 1750, from Italian. And lava, torrent, stream, traditionally said to be from the Latin lava, L-A-V-A-R-E, which means to wash, and originally applied in Italian to flash flood rivulets after downpours, and then to streams of molten rock from Mount Vesuvius. Then you have the term lavation, L-A-V-A-T-I-O-N, act of washing and cleansing. And this is where the term lavatory comes from. Now, lavatory is a wash basin in America, but in the UK it means toilet. And then you have ashes, meaning mortal remains of a person, circa 13th century, and later, to complete the circle, it meant finely pulverized lava thrown from a volcano from the 1660s. So you have lava, ghost, spirit or demon; lava, molten rock producing steam; lavation, which means the act of cleansing; and ashes, mortal remains, and pulverized lava. Does it all tie together? Well, I think so, yes. All mountains are portals in many ways. All volcanoes are definitely portals. And for people who think you can't go through that heat, wrong. They have technology that can change the shape of matter, so that wouldn't change it. And there's been many sightings around the world of objects and craft going in and out of both mountains and volcanoes around the world, and not just modern day either. Why do you think the main mountains in Russia is called the Urals, which means the gods of Ur? Of course, the gods meaning at that time means it's a higher evolved being and not some single bearded man sitting on a cloud passing judgment. But is it lava or lava coming out of the ashes, creating a lavation, the act of washing or cleansing, taking place with a range of volcanoes all going off currently? The jinns reside in the mountains, this we do know and can confirm, more prevalent in certain places than others, and so explains the term lava being a similar spelling and pronunciation of the mountain spewing the lava or lava, and the cleansing of the spirits. You will get where I'm going shortly. Since the jinns issues surrounding Solomon and the 3,000-year covenant and subsequent binding of the dark spirits here, who also took part in building that temple, there has been a steady increase in volcanic activity, and this could well be the planet purging them being the jinns, where lava, spirit, undergoes lavation, cleansing, and comes out in ash, mortal remains, in the flowing lava. Nobody really asks the question as to why the lava is so hot below our feet. Science tries to explain it in their conformity to zero knowledge way, and talks about friction, but fails to mention the central sun in all inhabited planets. As above, so below. And it is this that creates the heat and causes the cracks in the crust. Like I mentioned last week of how Nibiru's planet was dying, the reason being was their central sun was corrupted. Now I will say possibly, but I believe this to be correct, due to the power pack device being removed from the central sun and used for rogue purposes. Now that power pack was missing from our central sun until it was replaced and announced in our show around a year ago. This kicked the drive back in gear. This planet has a drive motion, and this is why the planet is moving more phase shifting is taking place, why stars are not in the same place, and why more people are having dizzy spells. With the power pack in place, the expansion of the planet is now underway. Hence the warning, stay off mountains until things settle down, which could be for a few years yet. But the expansion will also lead to a cleansing of those deemed not suitable here, and the jinns were designated not suitable for development on this planet going forward. So the lava is being cleansed via levation and spills out in the form of ash and lava. It could also be seen in an elemental way as well. Fire, water, air and earth. Are these spirits being cleansed by the fire elements that also uses water that when reacted with air produces steam? The earth is then cleansed and replenished as the spirit floats off into the fifth element, the ether, which is the element I suspect in part creates gravity here. In part, not total. There are many old souls that become trapped below our feet. Is the fire dance of the spirit elementals from the volcano releasing the old souls for a return to source? Question mark. And it's something for all to ponder on, the implications of that now and also going forward. Whilst volcanoes are often looked upon with fear, I know they're playing a crucial planetary role here and now of rebalancing and in part resetting the whole planet. It needs cleansing with conditions that will aid all living beings going forward, including the planet herself. The volcanoes also create our atmosphere, as proven in the piece last week, and appears to be playing a far bigger role in our developments than many considered. As the lava flows, new land is created. Fire has a fear attached to it as well, as it can and has done much damage. And another version of something sacred that has been corrupted here into a fear, distortion or weaponized program. But fire is one of the four elementals that is integral to this planet. And so yes, fire can destroy, but it also transmutes for the good. It reinvigorates the soil and encourages new growth in the forest. Maybe in the future, only the real shamans should live in communes close to the volcanoes, not masses of people. That is not sensible thinking at this juncture of time and development, and never was. Like Hawaii, with the lava cleansing continuing, it seems ridiculous that people still live there. Now I know there were many people placed there to staff it for the bloody US military, like most islands are in use for strategic military purposes only. Let's get that right. But Hawaii, Mount Etna and many other volcanoes, vast numbers of people live right underneath them, when there are so many other regions untapped to live in safely. And the same applies to living on coasts and rivers. One storm or downpour and you've lost everything. So when you consider only 5% of this planet is developed, that doesn't mean we have to develop the other 95%, no. But there's only 5% of it developed, and you add in the expansion taking place on this planet, which will reduce that figure, because there'll be more land. There's no need for anyone to live in danger zones of that ilk going forward. Next time you go out in nature, consider the impact volcanoes have on and what is around you. They create the air you breathe. The rain, all at some point, came from the inner sun, heating up the lower crust, creating steam, which creates the atmosphere. Without volcanoes, we would have no atmosphere. Feel the connection to the inner sun, not just the planet. As without it, as Nibiru found out, there would be life, Jim, but not as we know it. Hi all, that ended rather quickly. The final piece of, there's a couple of pieces actually, that will complete tonight's show. This came to light a few weeks ago, but was not mentioned in the show, following certain higher end discussions to determine the global demographics here. And we were presented with some figures for your consideration, as it's kind of rather difficult to determine or prove in many ways, and requires some discernment of how it makes you feel. It's no different from the 85-15% swing that has been mentioned in previous shows. But the figures that came back, it was stated here that there are 62% who are human, 25% are non-human, but many in human form, and 13% are bots or clones. Like I said, it's a lot better than the 85-15% swing, but neither can be proven 100% at this point. But with these figures, with 38% not being human here, tells a story in and of itself, does it not? Particularly in light of who is or was running things on this planet. 38%, they reckon. Is life like a movie loaded with the NPCs, like extras in the scene? When you see that series Dark, you'll understand this a bit more. Whereby a series of events always plays out, epoch after epoch. Our show has covered this a lot, and so has Randy's as well, several times in several shows. And maybe we'll do another one together on this particular subject with Alan in the coming months. This week we're discussing taxation and cryptos and a few other things. But we're going to pick different topics each month and do a show once a month. So maybe this will come up in subsequent months. And Shane Laruna also covered this in his blog and mentioned it on our show. And he said, quote, "The movie must play out," unquote, he said. But what if it doesn't? Why does it have to play out? Recently we spoke about this time period of living people being the bearer and corrector of their own family lines, and many people have recognised that statement within their own lives and families. My own family on both sides have a history of violence to the children a lack of love to the children, sibling favouritism passed down from generation to generation, which I sought to end with me. I had no idea at the time that it may have something to do with a bigger picture, but as life plays out, it did. You know, the family favouritism was one thing that kind of hit me hard personally as a child, as both parents made it blatantly obvious to all and sundry that my sister was their golden child. I was the outcast, the black sheep, the person who had achieved nothing, while the sister would go on to be the be-all and end-all. That never happened on both counts, to much embarrassment to both parents, but both have apologised in their own way since. But I was insistent that when married I only wanted one child, so the favouritism that had gone on in at least 3 generations that I was aware of would end. As it turned out, a second child came along that was planned by one, but not planned or told to the other. So this gave me another challenge. And when they got to, I think they were about 20 and 16, they were both arguing with each other one day, and both were accusing each other that they were the favourite. And that to me was a result, that I give enough to both that it equalled out. And they say at times we become like our parents. But what if in the movie the parents are us anyway? Like a reflection in the mirror. Many will argue against that they become like their parents, me in particular. Given people often said, where did you get him from? And not in a pleasant manner, I might add, when I was a child. And yet they said the same thing as an adult, but in a more pleasant way. So it's a case of the old adage, a leopard can't change its spots. It's not correct. People can change their spots every day, and often without realising it. So the so-called wild child came good, which then disappointed many within my own family. But inner insecurity runs deep in most families, and too many are happy to see you fail rather than prosper. And that is the gist of the competitive and comparative mindset program that's immersed in us all in different levels, unless you recognise it and work on changing it. So the point is, each and every person can be the change. And never underestimate the catalyst of one person being the change. Doesn't matter who it is. Look at you all now since THI started 3.25 years ago. Most of you are not on the same book of life, never mind the same page. We've encouraged and demonstrated extraordinary change within our own group on a personal and also a collective level. And I know I'm not alone in thinking this, but someone who was written off in life by their parents, family, teachers and associates can rise up and deliver changes not just in me, but in a whole mass of people globally. And if I can do that from that background, why can't you? You know, I had several doubts in myself. Some of the admins are aware of that, Holly in particular. You know, in fact, I was riddled with them. But certain people came along and certain opportunities came along at certain key points of time. Do you think that was a coincidence? It wasn't. So why did it happen? Because I asked for that opportunity and was willing to work for it. And at it. No matter what unfolds in the future, I'm comfortable in the knowledge I did my best for everyone and the changes that came about. Why? Because I learned to believe in myself, trust myself, love myself, all in balance. And balance is the key in a dualistic world of all is black and white. They are extremes. Going forward, we need balance, not extremes. So does the movie have to play out? No. Why? Because we are the editors, remember. We can make changes to ourselves which subsequently changes the movie, does it not? We have several glitches in the movie that have changed the scenes subtly within the movie already, that has tilted the balance in extraordinary ways. And the key to it all is believing in yourself and your own powers aligned with thinking and acting different. How many people read a story of some dire prediction, we're all going to die, and go into fear mode? Most people. How many think, I wonder if I can change that, but don't believe they can? Again, it's very few. Well, the glitches know they can change it and act accordingly. It's the difference. The glitches are not special. They don't necessarily have superpowers, but recognize they have abilities, believe in it, and they themselves then act upon it. Now, it takes practice, the same as everything else, mastery and responsibility also. So why did so few exhibit it? Because most people will not go to any great lengths to improve themselves. That's the key. Too focused on improving the external materialistic aspects and all other things external of them. That's where we've gone wrong. Most others go into fear or don't even think about the possibility that they can change it, or don't even think about it at all. Well, shit happens. But we are all creators and editors in the movie. So why come to people with problems? Why ask others for solutions when you're more than capable of creating solutions for yourself? So the answer is no, the movie does not have to play out. We've already changed it, and we need to change it more. And the more engaging in that enterprise, the quicker the movie ends once and for all. It's not about becoming a Neo. That is ego. You are the Neo when you apply yourself in the correct manner. Big difference. The non-return to source and our own judgment process, facilitated by soul trap, memory wipe and recycling reincarnation technologies, has been fairly costly here, which is now all dealt with, I might add. And only now we're beginning to get a grasp on it and striving to correct it. And often this solicits anger and all other emotions of those who did it. But eventually reflections on that fact is we also played a role in it. By ignoring our own intuitions, ignoring our connections to higher self, neglect of the self due to over-reliance on things external, and not observant of what is around us. And then you add in non-thinking, refusal to change, and we have a recipe for disaster, which is what we got. The purge is underway and manifesting now in so many different ways and levels now, and it can and will be difficult to stay the course with it. but we failed in the past through a lack of ignorance and endurance, playing the ego imbalance and the divide and conquer games, and the biggest problem of all, fallen for seducements. Just like the Australian New Zealand tribe did 16,500 years ago and sold us all into a slavery program until August 2016. They took the seducement, the bribe. We have to get stronger, tougher, more resilient and more adult oriented to overcome not only the dark forces but for the species progression also that has been stalled for so long. There will be no ETs, NTs, Jesus, Allah or any other god or goddesses coming to save you, or even worse, politicians. In fact, some of that list created this problem to begin with. The gods and goddesses, with their insane thinking and wanting to be special games. It failed. Only we can save ourselves, and it's a complete lack of responsibility and sovereignty to accept others to save us. And ultimately, childlike, is it not? We are the creators. We are the editors. We can create a new world and we can delete their old movie. The stakes now are higher than ever. A ramp up against us has increased drastically. Be without fear in the face of your enemies. Do not cower behind these cowards of the dark. They are so brave they hide in the shadows, lurk in hidden plains, hide in covens and hide behind robes and masks. Be brave and upright, speak the truth always, even if it leads to your death. Safeguard the helpless and do no wrong. We are here for a reason, to face head on these dark forces. We are winning heavily. We know it and they know it. And it is your warrior aspect duty and also your oath. Protect, fight and defend at all costs. Our time has come and we must deliver. Stay safe, stay strong, stay prepared and never let anyone put you in fear. This has been the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name's Thomas Williams. I'll see you all on Saturday. Bye for now.